Palestinians gather in the Ramallah city center to mark the one-year anniversary of Israel's genocidal war on Gaza. Citizens in Tel Aviv gathered near the residence of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to demand the release of their relatives held in Gaza. And armed criminal groups carried out an attack in central Haiti, killing at least 70 people and displacing some 6,300 others from their homes. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Monday, Palestinians gathered in the Ramallah city center to mark the one-year anniversary of Israel's genocidal war on Gaza. Israel's year-long offensive in Gaza, one of the deadliest and most destructive in recent history, has killed more than 41,000 people, over half of them women and children. The security situation in the West Bank has also significantly worsened over the last year. Almost 722 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank by the occupation forces and Israeli settlers. The Israeli onslaught has displaced most of Gaza's 2.3 million people and sparked a humanitarian crisis that has led to widespread hunger.
A year has passed and Israel is stumbling. It is committing massacres against our people, our children and our houses. But we are victorious. Today we are taking Israel to international courts. Today, the Palestinian cause is on the top of issues. The Palestinian cause is now recognized by all the countries, as well as in the International Criminal Court. This is the victory of October 7th. October 7th has united the countries, Iraq, Lebanon and Iran.
I have been in Ramallah since the start of the war. It is hard to make a living. A lot of people from Gaza are here and they are unemployed. God knows how they can pay for the accommodation, the cost of living, and how can they manage their life. Their wives and children are under shellfire. They are living in tents. They don't know if there will be a new day for their children. They sleep worried and they wake up worried. There is no safe place in Gaza, not schools, mosques or hospitals. There is no safe place for families. We want a solution for this. Enough of war.
The Israeli occupation army shelled the vicinity of Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital 1 year after the genocide perpetrated by Israel against the Palestinian population in the Gaza Strip. At least 11 people, including children, were injured in the attack that hit tents located in the hospital center, in which displaced people had been sheltered. A medical source at the hospital reported that the wounded received immediate treatment amid deteriorating humanitarian conditions as a result of the ongoing attacks. Since the onset of the genocide in the Gaza Strip on October 7, 2023, Israel has killed 41,870 people and has wounded more than 97,000 others. Israeli forces killed Palestinian 19-year-old journalist Hassan Ahmad in an airstrike on his home in northern Gaza's Jabalia refugee camp, days after saying that an Israeli officer had warned him of stop filming in Gaza. Colleagues confirmed Ahmad's death, saying that the journalist's home was deliberately stricken to silence him after his life had been threatened to death. Ahmad had been documented Israel's occupation of Gaza for over a year and worked as a freelance TV reporter. According to Gaza's government media office, Ahmad's work appeared on Al Jazeera and other networks. So far, the death toll of Palestinian reporters slaughtered since October 7, 2023 has risen to 175. And 1 year after the occupation in Palestine, citizens in Tel Aviv gathered near the residence of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to demand the release of their relatives held in Gaza. Demonstrators said that Netanyahu has been repeatedly obstructing attempts of negotiations and sacrificing the lives of hostages in order to stay in power. Others claim that 101 soldiers remain trapped in the death tunnels, while the Prime Minister refuses to take responsibility. A group of families of hostages and missing people stressed the importance of consolidating an agreement that guarantees the safe return of all hostages captured in Palestine. And on Monday, Jordan's top diplomat condemned Israel's ongoing bombings against Lebanon, saying it is pushing the Middle East into the abyss of full-scale regional war.
Good evening, everyone. Jordan is prepared to provide all the assistance it can to Lebanon to deal with the consequences of this brutal aggression. This aggression constitutes a clear violation of international law and a violation of Lebanon's sovereignty. We have seen this Israeli aggression begin in Gaza, and it is still ongoing, and it has now moved to Lebanon, pushing the entire region into the abyss of a full-scale regional war. Israel bears responsibility of this aggression, the escalation in the region, and any new escalation that the region faces, and which will inevitably push the region towards the abyss of a regional war from which no one will benefit.
And 1 year after the beginning of the ongoing Israeli genocide against Palestine, the bombings do not stop, but the number of dead and wounded keeps rising. Let's have a look at some figures.
The Palestinian Ministry of Health has confirmed that the number of deaths in Gaza has come close to 42,000 since last October 7, 2023, in addition to 695 in the West Bank, without taking into account those victims who, until today, are still under the rubble. So far, at least 96,844 wounded, of which most of the victims are women and children, while the Israeli occupation forces continue to stop the movement of ambulances and civil defense teams for the care of those affected by the bombings. There are also more than 1.9 million displaced persons in Gaza, of whom only some 10,600 have found shelter in a total of 27 locations, including schools run by the United Nations Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, where makeshift health centers are working under increased pressure to cope with the demand. On the other hand, in terms of material damage, more than 70,000 infrastructure has been destroyed in Gaza, including homes, hospitals, and schools that were used as shelters, among others. As of October 4th, UN member states have disbursed about $1.68 billion of the $3.42 billion request to meet the most critical needs of 2.3 million people in Gaza and 800,000 people in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, from January 2024 to date.
Let's take a short break. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Pakistani authorities are investigating a large explosion that occurred this October 6 outside Karachi airport, killing 2 Chinese citizens and injuring others. The Chinese embassy to Pakistan reported that a convoy carrying Chinese workers from a power company was attacked near the Jinnah International Airport in Karachi. As a result of the explosion, 2 Chinese citizens were killed, another was injured, and the other 7 victims belong to the local population. An inspector general of police told the media that apparently an oil tanker explosion had taken place, adding that they are still investigating the incident and that it is too early to give a full assessment of the crime, in which police officers were also killed.
Según los primeros informes, se inició un incendio.
According to first reports, a fire broke out in an oil tanker, involving several vehicles and causing collateral damage. We are trying to assess whether there is an element of terrorism, and we have not ruled it out.
Chinese and North Korean leaders celebrate 75 years of diplomatic relations. Chinese President Xi Jinping stressed that the establishment of diplomatic ties between the two countries allowed mutual support in consolidating socialism, defending national sovereignty, and promoting peace in the region. North Korea's President Kim Jong-un reaffirmed his government's commitment to strengthen cooperation with China in line with the interests of both peoples and the requirements of the new era. The two leaders wish each other mutual prosperity, success in consolidating their achievements, and progress in becoming increasingly modern societies. And in Kazakhstan, the construction of a nuclear power plant was approved on Sunday through a referendum with 66.23% support and 63.87% turnout, according to preliminary data presented by the country's Central Electoral Commission. More than 12.2 million Kazakhs voted on Sunday to agree or disagree on the government's proposal to build the country's first ever nuclear power plant. During the process, it was reported that there were no major incidents. In addition, the president of Kazakhstan, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, went to the polls earlier in the day and cast his vote at a polling station in the capital city of Astana. The construction of a nuclear power plant will reduce Russia's electricity imports and its dependence on fossil fuels, as the country is 80% dependent on coal mines to generate electricity, a highly polluting sector. And the Russian government accused Ukraine of planning a false flag attack with toxic substances during military operations. The Russian Defense Ministry reported to have intel on Ukraine training more than 40 security agents in The Hague to take samples, documenting the use of toxic substances. In turn, the ministry said that the evidence will be handed over to the representative of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons to prepare a fair report. The Defense Ministry warned about the request of the permanent mission of Ukraine to the European Union to supply about 283,000 hazmat suits and 20,000 kits for the rapid containment of chemical warfare agents. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcasts, and some more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. On Sunday, Mexican entities and political leaders paid homage to the late president of the Chamber of Deputies, Ifigenia Martinez. Martinez was an outstanding left-wing feminist in Mexico who passed away at 94, 4 days after she had led Claude Sheinbaum's sworn-in ceremony. On Friday, Martinez posted on X that handing in the presidential sash to the first woman president was one of the greatest honors of her life. Meanwhile, President Claudia Sheinbaum sent her deepest condolences. Moreover, days later, Ricardo Monreal described her as an extraordinary woman. Furthermore, the Autonomous National University of Mexico praised her as a distinguished economist and a tireless fighter for freedoms and democracy. Armed members from criminal groups carried out an attack in central Haiti, killing at least 70 people and displacing some 6,300 others from their homes. The attack in Pont-Sonde occurred in the early hours of Thursday morning, and many left on foot in the middle of the night, taking only their children and other relatives with them. Currently, almost 90% of the displaced are staying with relatives in host families. Violence from criminal groups in the Artibonite department, which produces much of Haiti's food, has increased in recent years. The International Organization for Migration said on October 2nd that over 700,000 people, more than half of them children, are currently internally displaced in Haiti.
They shot at us, and the gangs robbed the houses. They tried to kill everyone, and some people were shot in the head.
On Monday, the U.S. National Hurricane Center informed that by 9 a.m., Hurricane Milton strengthening to Category 4. Experts predicted that Hurricane Milton can potentially reach Category 5, grounded in the record warmth of the Gulf of Mexico. In addition, the center forecasted that both dangerous hurricane-force winds and storm surge with damaging waves are expected across portions of the northern coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. Therefore, the Mexican government issued a hurricane warning for the Yucatan Peninsula coast from Celestun to Rio Lagartos. Meanwhile, the NHC alerted that environmental conditions will pose life-threatening risk at the west coast of the Florida Peninsula as of Tuesday evening or early Wednesday. Hence, authorities issue warnings and urge people to take precautions. And on October 10, 1980, in the midst of the armed conflict in El Salvador, the Farabundo Martí Front for National Liberation was founded. On Sunday, founders, leaders, and militants commemorated the 44th anniversary of the organization that became a political party. From San Salvador, correspondent Roberto Hugo Presa with the information.
Revolutionary music brightened up the atmosphere. Former fighters who took up arms for 12 years celebrated the 44th anniversary of the unification of 5 guerrilla groups that on October 10th, 1980 formed the most important guerrilla organization in El Salvador.
It is a historic moment where the synthesis of all Salvadoran revolutionaries unite in a single fist to strike harder and make the history of an armed conflict of a revolutionary people's war that lasted 12 years.
This commemoration honored the memory of thousands of revolutionary fighters who died before, during, and after the war. The historical cadres of the former guerrillas were absent. Many left the country when judicial proceedings were announced against them.
Many of the leaders of the Farabundo Martí Front for National Liberation are victims of arbitrary judicial persecution, based on proceedings without any evidence, totally illegal proceedings. They are kept out of the country. They have had to seek protection and refuge in friendly countries.
We are under a neo-fascist regime that persecutes the social fighters, the members of the front, the founders. Many of our comrades are in exile. Others have open processes. Others are in jail.
But this coup did not break the spirit of thousands of revolutionaries who continue to accompany the people in their struggle for their rights.
Because we are seeing that the government has forgotten the social agenda and has dedicated itself to an economic agenda in which few will benefit and many will suffer the effects of this economic issue in El Salvador.
Before a euphoric militancy, the General Secretary called on the workers to defend the conquests achieved, especially teachers and health workers whose pay scales were eliminated by the government.
We condemn the lack of transparency in the use of public funds and repudiate the abusive salaries of officials and employees in favor of the regime. Just as in the past, today we raise our voice for all those whose rights have been violated.
The maximum leader of the organization expressed his solidarity with the peoples of Palestine and Lebanon who are the object of genocidal attacks and condemned the criminal blockade that the United States maintains against Cuba and Venezuela.
Roberto Hugo Presa, teleSUR, El Salvador.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.